Have you ever smelled a fragrance that twisted your gut, not because it was foul, but because it dragged up painful memories? I was 42, she was 37. I stood in the backyard, tending to the ridiculous bonsai tree my wife swore we when the scent hit me, vanilla and jasmine, with a harsh, artificial bite. Emma's perfume, the one she claimed gave her migraines, that never stopped her from dousing herself in it for someone else. At my feet, last spring's white rose petals were dropping, wilting in the summer heat. They reminded me of tiny, crumpled tissues, useless after a spill no one bothered to mop up. It felt oddly appropriate. Then the sliding glass door slid open, and she stepped out, heels clicking, makeup perfect, hairstyle like we were off to a gala. But we weren't, not this time. Emma handed me a silver envelope, avoiding my gaze. Her tone was as breezy as if she were asking me to pick up bread. Let's keep this simple. No fuss, just sign where I've marked. I stood still, staring at the envelope. It even had a gold wax seal, like our divorce papers were some kind of festive invitation. Divorce, I said at last. You're presenting divorce papers like they're a present. Her lips curled into a faint smirk. You're welcome. I should have been shattered, maybe even heartbroken, but something else stirred instead. I grinned, not from joy, but from the clarity of a puzzle finally snapping into place, revealing a truth I'd misjudged. I pushed the envelope back into her manicured hand, locked eyes with her, and said, wait until your lover gets his envelope. Her face didn't move, but her hand flinched just enough to betray her. Emma had no idea what I'd uncovered, no hint that I'd been quietly preparing my own surprise, biding my time for her to make a mistake, and she just had. For a split second, Emma froze. She's always been skilled at masking her emotions, but she's not flawless. I've studied her face longer than anything else. That slight jaw twitch? That was fear. She quickly covered it, turning toward the kitchen as if I hadn't just upended her world. I don't know what you're trying to pull, James, she said without looking back, her voice sharp and icy, like the metal of that divorce envelope. But we're finished. You should be thrilled. You despise being married to me anyway. She was fishing for a reaction, but I didn't bite. I calmly walked inside, opened the drawer next to the coffee maker, and pulled out a plain white envelope. No fancy seal, no theatrics, just raw truth. Inside were 7 photos. Emma in yoga pants, entwined with a man who wasn't me, kissing him outside a grimy motel. I didn't meet a private detective. My phone had automatically synced her pictures. She'd labeled the folder Wellness Retreat and forgot to disconnect our devices. The worst part? I wouldn't have even looked if she hadn't been acting so superior for months. The first day I found those photos, I sat in my car for hours, staring at the dashboard. No tears, just disbelief, like the ground beneath me had turned to glass, and I could see the fractures before it shattered. But I didn't confront her then. I waited. I gathered every detail, her alibis, the receipts for new lingerie, hotel bookings that didn't align with her work trips, even the text she forgot to delete. I feel alive with you. He doesn't touch me like you do. And the one that sealed it, don't worry, he'll be gone soon. So yeah, I grinned when she handed me those divorce papers, because the image she thought she'd crafted was nowhere near the one I'd already pieced together. Crystal clear. As soon as she stepped back into the kitchen, I set the plain white envelope on the granite counter, right beside the quinoa salad she'd made for social media clout but never touched. This one's for you, I said, echoing her calm tone from earlier. No fuss, just the truth. I flipped to the final page. That one's my favorite. Her eyes narrowed as she cautiously opened the envelope, pulling out the papers like she sensed trouble brewing. With each photo she revealed, her expression shifted, from indifferent to puzzled, then to pure dread. She didn't speak for a solid minute. Her fingers trembled slightly when she reached the last photo, her and her lover, shirtless in his car, her hand resting in his lap. I didn't say more. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I just walked to the garage and opened the overhead compartment, where I'd stashed a packed suitcase. I didn't know exactly when this moment would arrive, but I knew it was coming. She always said I lacked spontaneity. Guess she misjudged that, too. When I returned, she was still staring at the photos. I tossed my car keys onto the kitchen island. Oh, by the way, I said casually, you might want to tip him off about the texts, about his name on a lease application while you are still legally my wife. I bet his wife will find that fascinating. Emma finally lifted her gaze to mine, her face pale as chalk. What do you mean, his wife? She stammered. I locked eyes with her. Didn't know. How? He's got a wife, too. 3 kids, a house in Brighton, and a golden retriever named Bella. Her mouth parted, but no words came. For the first time in years, a wave of clarity washed over me. Not triumph, not vengeance, just calm. I walked out the front door without a glance back. Deep down, though, I knew this wasn't the end. I drove for 2 hours, no destination in mind. The farther I got from that house, the lighter my chest felt. It was odd. Walking away from a decade of marriage should have broken me, but it didn't. No yelling in the car, no tears streaming, no fists slamming the wheel, just a heavy, final quiet. Beneath it, release. I checked into a quaint lodge near Lake Roland, the kind that smells of aged cedar and fireplace embers. with stiffly tucked beds and coffee that tastes like scorched earth. But it offered when I craved solitude. The woman at the desk, likely in her 60s, asked no questions. She handed me the key and said, "Hope you find what you need." I didn't smile, just nodded, unsure what I was even searching for anymore. In my room, I opened my laptop and uploaded the evidence I'd been collecting for months. Photos, text screenshots, location data, no accusations, no venom, just raw facts. I encrypted it all and stored it on 3 drives. One tucked into my suitcase, one stashed in my glove compartment, and the third mailed to someone I hadn't spoken to in 7 years, Emma's sister, Sarah. Sarah and I were once close. She always disapproved of Emma's craving for the spotlight. After our wedding, we drifted apart. I didn't resent her for it, but now she needed to see her sister's true colors. I wasn't expecting a reply. I just wanted someone else to know, someone who wouldn't pin this all on me. That night, my phone vibrated. Not a call, but a text from a familiar number. "You arrogant little nobody. Think you've won? You're pitiful." I read it once, then deleted it. Emma was unraveling. The poised, polished facade she showed the neighbors, her book club, her co-workers, the flawless woman with the curated social media life was crumbling. And I knew why. Her image was everything, and I just shattered her carefully constructed world. The next morning, as I struggled through a stale scone in the lodge's cafe, another message came from an unknown number. "We need to talk." I didn't know she was married. "Please." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Then why were you with her in a hotel while she still carried my last name?" No answer. 10 minutes passed. Then another text. "I messed up. Don't ruin me." It hit me then. He wasn't afraid of me. He was terrified for his own life, his family, his career. He had more to lose than Emma ever did. She'd been careless, but he'd been foolish. And now I held the upper hand. I didn't crave revenge, but I wanted him to grasp what Emma never did. Actions carry weight, and when you treat people like they're disposable, sometimes the ones you discard stand tall, and they don't forget. So I made a plan. I waited 2 days, long enough for Emma to simmer in uncertainty. Then I returned to the house, not to stay, but to pick up a few final things. The driveway was empty, her car was gone, but what stopped me cold was the for sale sign on the front lawn. I hadn't filed anything yet. There it was. Emma had listed the house before anything was finalized. Inside, the place felt empty. The furniture remained, but her essence was gone. No trace of her hairspray, no humming from another room, just silence and dust. On the counter sat a folder labeled "Staging Photos." She'd already hired a realtor. A note was taped to the fridge. "James, I assume you'll take your tools and files by Friday. I've packed the rest. Don't reach out again." Next to it, a selfie of her and him, beaming on a yacht, clutching champagne glasses, like none of this had ever happened. I took the photo, walked to the backyard fire pit, struck a match, and let it burn. Their smiling faces curled into gray ash. It didn't make me feel better, but it felt final. Sometimes that's enough. But Emma didn't know the real fire wasn't from the match. It was from the video I was about to share, not out of spite, but for closure, for me and maybe for someone else who needed to see her for who she truly was. The idea didn't stem from rage. It came from the quiet, from all those sleepless nights, wondering if I was losing my mind, if I'd become dull, or if I'd imagined it all. Emma never raised her voice or slammed doors. She just faded away bit by bit, until I was sharing a home with a stranger who smiled more at her screen than at me. So, no, this video wasn't about vengeance. It was about survival. I needed my truth to be heard, not by her, not by her lover, but by someone who understood the pain of living in a reality you thought was true, only to discover you were the only one unaware of the real story. I rented a modest studio 2 towns away, nestled in a quiet business park. Nothing elaborate, just a camera, a chair, and a technician who kept questions to himself. I didn't prepare a script or rehearse. I sat, faced the lens, and spoke plainly. Stanley. I recounted how we met, our wedding day when Emma gazed at me and vowed never to break my trust, calling me her anchor. I described the night she claimed she was working late while I sat with a cold dinner. I shared the moment I realized she'd memorized another man's touch instead of mine. Then I displayed the photos, showed the texts, and played a voicemail where she called him darling and wished I'd just sign the papers and vanish. I didn't shout or curse. I looked into the camera and said she handed me divorce papers like a present. I smiled and said I had a better one. The final frame was a still image. Emma's lover entering a middle school auditorium, hand in hand with his wife and children. Words flashed across the screen. He was in the dark, too. I uploaded the video privately, blurring faces and omitting names or addresses to shield the innocent. It wasn't extortion. It was truth, a clear cut, a line drawn. Then I sent it to 2 people. Emma's boss, who'd hosted us at his lake house last 4th of July, and her lover's wife. Then I powered off my phone. That evening, I left the lodge and drove to my cousin Ethan's place in Montana. Ethan's a carpenter, owns no TV, and steers clear of social media. I told him I needed a few weeks of peace. He offered his spare room and handed me a set of tools. I started sanding wood, feeling the solid grain under my hands. For the first time in a year, I slept for the night. 3 days later, Ethan stepped into the shed with a look that signaled the calm was ending. "You're getting mail, man," he said. "Not junk, actual letters." He added, "I checked your old email, too. Some therapist shared your story online. It's spreading." I didn't know how to take it. I hadn't aimed for fame or pity, but deep inside, a small part of me felt visible. Then came a message I never saw coming from Sarah. I watched it and broke down. "I'm sorry I left you to face that marriage alone," she said. "I should have said something years ago. I'm here for you now." I didn't know how to respond. What do you say when someone finally acknowledges the pain you've carried for years? I typed, erased, typed again, and finally sent. "Thank you for seeing me." That night, Ethan and I sat by the fire with whiskey, and I told him everything. For the first time, I wasn't ashamed. I didn't feel diminished for being betrayed. I felt whole, like I'd finally shed something that never belonged. But Emma wasn't done. The next morning, Ethan handed me his phone. "She's called my landline 5 times, he said, adding, "She left a message." Sounds off. I played the voicemail. Her voice was raw, frantic, not the Emma I knew. "James, I know you're furious, but you've got to stop. Please. I screwed up badly, but you're destroying lives. People are talking. His wife left him. My job's at risk. What more do you want?" I paused the message. The truth was, I wanted nothing anymore. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She was calling because her world of lies was collapsing, and that wasn't on me. Emma's voice used to be her strength, steady, calculated, able to spin arguments that made you doubt yourself. But this voicemail was breaking, not pleading for sympathy, but shaking with the fear of losing her. And Emma without control was like a dancer without rhythm, still moving, but entirely offbeat. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. There was nothing left between us. My silence wasn't about escape anymore. It was a boundary. The harder she pushed against it, the clearer it stood. Her power only worked when I let her in. But Emma wasn't used to being dismissed. That afternoon, Sarah sent me a screenshot, a Facebook post from Emma, carefully worded, emotionally charged, just vague enough to draw pity from those unaware of the truth. Sometimes, even when you pour your heart into something, people choose chaos. Please be kind. You never know someone's struggles. Emma's post had garnered over 100 likes, with countless comments offering comfort, virtual hugs, prayers, and invitations for girls' nights out. I stared at it for a long time, not with rage, but with a pang of pity. Emma wasn't just reshaping the past. She was casting herself as the wounded party, the woman deserted and betrayed by an ungrateful spouse. The irony was almost overwhelming. She was still putting on a show, still pretending, but the facade was starting to crack. That night, Sarah called me, her voice thick with frustration. "I went to Mom's house," she said, tearing up like a kid. "Emma claimed you were out to destroy your life. I told her to drop the act. You didn't name her publicly. You didn't expose her. You just let the truth land where it would, and that's what terrifies her. You didn't fight her way." I stayed quiet for a long moment before responding softly, "Exactly." A heavy, uneasy silence hung between us. My mind churned with questions, doubts, and anger. "Sarah, why didn't you warn me sooner?" I finally asked. "I tried," she confessed. "At your wedding, Emma shut me down fast, threatened to cut me off completely. Mom pleaded with me to stay quiet. You know, family loyalty. But loyalty shouldn't shield someone like Emma." "You're right," I said slowly, the weight of it sinking in. "She's been dangerous all along, hasn't she?" "I didn't see it coming," Sarah admitted. "Even as kids, Emma was manipulative, Benjamin. Nothing was ever her fault. She'd twist things, make me question myself constantly. It got worse as we grew up. It wasn't just a bad attitude. She knew exactly what she was doing. Her first husband, Michael, fell apart after she left him, lost his job, had panic attacks, his whole life unraveled, and she acted like it was nothing, just moved on." My throat tightened. 10 years of marriage, and I'd never heard about Michael. "Hold on," I said, voice unsteady. "She was married before me?" "Yeah," Sarah said, her tone bitter. "She moved to a new city before meeting you. Fresh start, new story. She convinced us all to keep it secret, said you wouldn't get it. She got your whole family to hide her first marriage from me?" I whispered. "Exactly. She told everyone you were controlling, unstable, the same lies she used on you. But Michael was a victim, just like you." I took a shaky breath. "We deserve the truth," I said. Sarah sighed heavily. "I'm sorry I took so long to tell you, but you needed to know." We ended the call, and I sat in the dark, staring into nothing. All these years, I thought Emma was just selfish, maybe callous, but now I saw she was dangerous, far more than I'd ever realized. Sarah's words hit hard. I'd spent years trying to prove I was enough for someone who saw loyalty as a flaw and kindness as a tool to manipulate. 2 days later, a courier arrived at Ethan's place with a letter for me. Not a text or email, a handwritten letter in Emma's precise script. "James, what we had was real. You were a good man. Maybe you still are. I always valued your patience, even if I didn't show it. I made terrible mistakes, but I want to believe there's still a part of you that remembers how we began. Before the chaos, before the silence. I'm asking to meet one last time. No drama, No resentment, just truth. I read it twice. The last time she wrote me anything by hand was in college, with little hearts scribbled in the margins. Now the writing was neat, deliberate, calculated. Still, a part of me was curious, not hopeful, but intrigued to see the real Emma now that her mask had slipped. We met at a small riverside cafe, the same spot we used to visit on lazy Sunday mornings when life felt unscripted. She arrived 10 minutes late, dressed like a fashion spread, as if perfection could erase the past. She wore sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. When she removed them, her eyes weren't remorseful or teary, just exhausted. "James," she said as she sat, voice hesitant. "I didn't agree to anything," I replied. "I said I'd hear you out." She nodded, exhaling slowly. "I've lost everything, have you?" I tilted my head. She blinked. "He's gone. His wife left him. His boss found out. I've been put on leave. My job's on the line." Her voice wavered for a moment. I stayed silent. She stared, waiting for me to offer comfort or salvation. I didn't move. "I thought you'd try to destroy me," she said. "I didn't," I said plainly. "You did that yourself." She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You've changed," she whispered. "No," I said, standing. "I haven't. You gave me divorce papers like a gift." I smiled because I had a better one. Freedom. I walked away without a backward glance. Emma sat alone, and for once, no one was there to applaud or act. Stepping into the cool air, there was no rush of triumph, no movie score swell. Just the quiet rhythm of a life moving forward without her. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. That chapter had closed, not with a shout, but with a quiet truth neither of us could escape. Freedom isn't a door you step through to instant sunlight. It's empty at first, waking to no blaring alarm, brewing coffee in quiet, passing mirrors, and not knowing the face staring back because you spent years gauging your value by her gaze or its absence. Freedom came gradually. It was folding clothes without bitterness, erasing old photos with steady hands, entering a store and not texting anyone about which milk to grab. It was simple, but profound. Yet, traces of Emma's world kept trailing me. A week after our cafe meeting, her lawyer sent a curt email, cold, grasping. She wanted to amend the divorce terms, claiming she'd signed too hastily. No remorse, no admission, just a desperate plea for negotiation. I didn't answer. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a single note. No reply needed. Move forward as planned. Emma never grasped it. This wasn't about victory. It was about calm. Peace doesn't come from haggling with someone who views every bond as a deal. As she maneuvered legally, her world kept unraveling. Ethan sent me a screenshot one morning. Whispers had spread through tight-knit circles. Her leave of absence turned permanent. Her name stripped from board rosters. Charity invitations dried up. She didn't just lose me. She lost the persona she'd crafted. I began anew. I settled in a small town, took a job consulting for a construction company that valued output or credentials. I worked with my hands. I spent time alone without feeling isolated. I started connecting with people again, not out of obligation, but desire. There was a woman, Harper, who ran the bookstore across from my new apartment. Witty, sharp, unapologetically herself. One day, she handed me a copy of The Art of Letting Go and said, "You seem like you could use less clutter in your mind." I laughed louder than I had in years. We didn't dive into anything immediately. I wasn't ready, but her gaze was different, genuine, direct, rooted. That's when it hit me. Emma hadn't broken me. She'd exposed me, peeled away everything until I could see myself clearly. Not as a victim, not as a scorned man, but as someone who once accepted emotional crumbs, mistaking them for love. They weren't. Here's what I learned. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the sound of a man reconstructing himself, one solid step at a time, without needing anyone's approval. Nearly 5 months had passed since I last saw Emma. No more letters, no more voicemails, no more legal ploys. She faded from my life like smoke after a blaze. I thought that was the end, until a message arrived from a blocked number. Not a text, a video. I hesitated, but curiosity won out. She sat in a dimly lit hotel room, makeup smudged, tears staged rather than real. She looked into the camera. "James, you might not watch this all, but I need it on record." I paused it there. That line hit hard. This wasn't for me. It was a tactic, a paper trail. I let it play. She spoke of mistakes, chaos, things spinning out of control. Then her voice sharpened. "I need you to confirm I never forced you, that everything we had was mutual, that I never manipulated or emotionally harmed you. My side of the story is tanking my career. People are getting the wrong idea." There was, not regret, but a defense, another attempt to rewrite the past. I didn't reply. I cataloged everything. I sent the video to my lawyer with all the evidence. Photos, emails, her own texts. My lawyer shook his head. "She's probing you. Don't waver." I didn't. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was detached, watching her drown in a storm she brewed, still pointing fingers at the clouds. But Emma kept trying. A few days later, Harper came to the cafe, holding her phone. "Someone sent me something about you," she said softly. "A private message from a fake account. Vague claims about you being erratic, controlling. No name. But the tone, the phrasing, it was Emma. She's not just trying to save herself. She's trying to taint anything good you're creating. I handed Harper her phone and said, she was my wife once. Harper didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, maybe it's time you wrote your own story's end. Those words lingered. I was done playing defense. I was done cleaning her messes. I was building a life she couldn't touch. 6 months passed. Emma's noise dissolved into silence. No more fake accounts, no more messages. Her fire fizzled without fuel. In me, I rebuilt. Steadily, deliberately. I painted my kitchen, took up hiking again, adopted a scruffy, loyal dog named Rusty. Harper stayed in my life. We talked, we laughed, we lived without pretense. One Sunday, I visited the lake where Emma and I once stood. I pulled the old divorce papers from my jacket and let the breeze carry them away. I didn't watch them drift. I turned and walked toward a life built not from what I lost, but from who I'd chosen to be. I wasn't the man she betrayed. I was the man who overcame it. And nothing is more powerful than realizing closure doesn't come from an apology. It comes from waking up, looking in the mirror, and knowing she no longer owns even a fragment of me.